Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Monday edition of Sidelines. Rob Browne here with you. You've got a great lineup today. We'll start off with Jacques Doucet down WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge. LSU still has to play today to hopefully they will clinch their region. 10 SEC teams started out. We'll cover out who's still in, who's out. Second segment, Dave Schultz will check in from Lafayette. Hour number 2, Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis at Rhodes. Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com. Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz. And Little Rock will check in. The Razorbacks have to play this afternoon against TCU. I think TCU missed an extra point in that 20-5 win yesterday. Arkansas won the elimination game last night, a tough one with Santa Clara. So lots to talk about. 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, 50 hours plus content. Sidelines is here. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And let's go straight into it now with Jacques Doucet. And I know Jacques, I was watching the game with a bunch of guys over here at the Cherry Farm at the Hunting Lodge, LSU fans, Tanner Smith from DeRitter. And we're watching that game. That is an incredible venue for college baseball. A lot of major league teams don't draw like that, especially as the seasons go on. But I guess we learned one thing for sure. The SEC is a great league for baseball. But I always tell people you're most likely to get mugged in your own driveway when you start thinking home field advantage is too much. What have you learned so far from you've been out there for all those games? Oregon State, I know last year Auburn had to go out to Corvallis, and Butch Thompson said that was one of the toughest environments he's ever played in. I think 3 national championships the last 10 years. How strong is this region?
Well, the attendance yesterday was listed at 12,341 for the LSU Oregon State game. LSU was slow to get off the ground. They left the bases loaded twice, and they made some bugaboos on defense and fell behind 3-0. They were not playing winning baseball early. And to be honest, there were a lot of empty seats. That's one of those things where you're playing the most important game of the year. And sometimes it's hard to recreate some of those atmospheres you had in the regular season during SEC, like against Arkansas and Tennessee and whatnot. But the crowd definitely impacted the game. It got very, very loud. And Oregon State, who's not used to playing in front of those atmospheres, they might have buckled a tad. They only lost the game by 1 run, so they were right there at the end. But it's funny, then they have to turn around and play a game against Sam Houston State, and it sounds like there's an American Legion game going on behind me, just some smattering of applause and not many people at all. But one thing I have learned, I already know it, but you are reminded that the most powerful force, Rob, is Mother Nature. You cannot control the weather, and it has seriously impacted this game this weekend. And look, you want to be safe and not sorry, but there's been some discussion here about these lightning delays and the radius of lightning, and is this safe or stupid? Can we find maybe a happy medium? We got people coming in the park telling me the ballpark down the street is packed with kids, and they're playing, and we're sitting over here in 3 hour and Saturday a 6 hour delay because of weather. So that's why we're still playing today. We're not supposed to be playing today, but we are.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that makes my wife get so frustrated about college football. I remember an Auburn game back in 2019 against Southern Miss. Saw clouds off on the horizon. Bam, they emptied 90,000 people out. The game, from the delay in the game itself, was like 6 hours and 43 minutes, and it was hot. It was miserable. It was in September. I know that feeling, and that rule is a lightning strike within 8 miles. And I've never seen a region, so much regional play disrupted by the weather. And I know it's about safety and all, but golly, this game today, what's the weather supposed to be today? This time of year in Baton Rouge, it can always rain.
Yeah, and that's why I always laugh when people say, the second it rains, and we get emotional and go on Twitter and say, hey, need to play in a place with a roof, or whatever. I'm like, it's the South, man. It's every day is kind of the Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. It's like dry in the morning and in the afternoon, well, we might get hit, we may not, So I think we got some challenges today. I mean, from what I'm looking at, the rain chances are somewhat high, but you know how that goes. It could be storming 5 miles down the street and you don't get a drop where you're standing. So hopefully we can weave our way through it. LSU just needs to beat Oregon State once. They advance to the Super Regional, which they would host. And it looks like Kentucky and Indiana are playing a winner-take-all game today to advance, to be paired with this region.
Yeah, and Oregon State, that West Coast baseball versus what you see in the SEC, it's different. But I noticed just looking around Tennessee going over. Tennessee seems like they're much more relaxed than they were last year. They had all the pressure in the world as the number 1 seed, and this year you're not. They're a different team. LSU, you worry about how deep can they go in their bullpen, and that's the problem. Paul Skane is the best player in baseball. If they have to go, you look at some of these regions. You've played 4 or 5 games since Friday. That's a lot on your bullpen.
Well, it's been one of the most hotly discussed decisions by a head coach that I can remember, the decision to pitch Paul Skeens Friday against Tulane, who was 19-40 coming in. And so he pitches a complete game for the first time this season, and LSU doesn't use anybody in the bullpen in that game. A lot of people are like, why would you burn him on a team like that? Well, I mean, you could blink and be down 5-0 in the 3rd inning, even to a team like Tulane who was hot, and then it's like, oh God, now we're going into the losers bracket, and Jay Johnson, LSU's head coach, can say what he wants to say about, well, we felt like in the marble game, even if we win, it's not permanent. And if we lose, it's not fatal. We're going to come back no matter what. But actions speak louder than words. And he pitched Ty Floyd, his number 2, to start the game, who went 3 innings. And then here comes the weather, baseball thing. The guy's burned, can't bring him back. And so then LSU had the pin and brings Thatcher Hurd, who has been their 3rd starter. And so it was pretty apparent that LSU went all in to win that game last night. And by winning that game, Oregon State obviously has to play another game just to get back to LSU again, to beat them twice. And LSU still has guys like Javen Coleman and Riley Cooper who haven't pitched yet, ready to go. And so if LSU wins today 12-8, LSU wins and they move on. So, yeah, that's the deal. And you can even discuss, is it harder to win a regional or a super regional? Because in a super regional, you just got to win 2. And this one, you got to win 3. And so that obviously taxes your pitching a little bit more.
Yeah, looking around, Jay Johnson came from Arizona. He knows that Pac-12 style West Coast baseball. I look at the toll on every team has the same problem, pitching. You can't find anybody that has 8 pitchers that are all equally good. That's just not how it works. But the region, as you climb that ladder, compare this LSU team to some of the better ones you've seen. I think it's 2009, Paul Maneri won the last national championship, but LSU's got 6 of them. We know what Skip Bertman did. I mean, they're the standard in college baseball. Everybody wants to be and have what LSU has. But depth-wise, how are they on the whole team?
Well, 2009, like you said, was the last national champion at LSU, and then you almost get a better scope of how good the team is years after when you see how many of those guys made it to the majors or have been, playing minor league ball at a high level or whatever for a long time, and that one just was packed top to bottom with so many great players. And in 2017, LSU made it to the finals, had a chance to win another national championship. Some things didn't go their way, and they lost to Florida in that one. I don't think that this team is loaded with great pitching. They have a lot of great bats. And, yesterday they left the bases loaded 3 times, still were able to win 6-5. Tommy White, the big basher they got from NC State, I think he swung twice yesterday and struck out at pitches that were, up at his head. So he might be pressing a tad. But, Dylan Cruz is arguably the greatest player in LSU history. And Jay Johnson said he's the greatest player I've ever coached. And Jay Johnson's coached 14, 15 guys that are either in the majors or have made it to the majors. Paul Skeens is, a 1-year wonder for LSU, getting him from the Air Force. But he, is in the discussion as the greatest pitcher in LSU history in terms of, what he's doing up there with Ben McDonald, Aaron Nola, guys like that. And so you have some generational talents on this team. There's no doubt about it. Trey Morgan is a very electric player, how he can play first base in the outfield and whatnot. So, I didn't cover those teams in the 90s. I was a kid just cheering them on. That was another era of baseball with the offense. But, talking to some people, they've talked to some coaches off the record who feel like the game is not in a great place right now with the offense, that the ball, is full of helium and there's too many runs being scored. There's too much offense, which from a fan's perspective, there's no such thing probably. But they feel like the game was in a better place maybe in 2008-ish, 19-ish, and lately with the ball and some other things, the offense is kind of getting a little more skewed at this point. So anyway, I'm rambling, but
no, I agree with you. I mean, it talks about gorilla ball that LSU played, and that with the aluminum bats, it was different. And then it's almost like with football where you have a very poor defense, but that's also because these high-powered, hurry-up, no-huddle offenses go so fast. You're trying to outscore people, and you're seeing that 20-5 TCU over Arkansas yesterday. But look at Wake Forest, and here's a comment from a listener in Valdosta. 6, 7, and 8 pitcher at Wake Forest is a weekend starter at 90% of Division I programs. Wake Forest just destroyed their competition in their region. Again, I don't know how strong those teams are, but they killed them all. The pitching, Jacques, do you think it's the kids are starting so early with travel ball, and it's always been competitive in my mind, but 70 games when you're 8 or 9 years old, that's a lot to put. And by the time you get to high school and then college, what do you have left?
Yeah, it's a good question. I talked to some people who, I didn't play baseball. I don't know a whole lot about it, to be honest. But I talk to people and they say, like last week, pulling a guy out with 93 pitches as opposed to 113. What difference does it make? They feel like these guys can go. I remember covering games even in the early 2000s where guys were going 130, 140 pitches. Now, that was too far probably. And I remember one guy in particular, his arm was shot and he couldn't pitch. Travel ball and whatnot. There's always that fine line between, okay, this kid is working hard to be the best he can, and he's doing it, and he's doing this year round. And where's the fun in being a kid? Let him go to the pool and go swimming with his friends, right? So I don't know. So that's a good question. I would hope that the people in charge that are coaching at that level, that they know nobody cares about your record coaching 8, 9-year-olds. You're not going to be on ESPN, maybe to an extent. And the most important thing is the future of the kid and his arm. So that's what I would hope anyway.
Well, and it's hard because everybody wants to win. And you look in softball, I mean, it's a different motion, throwing underhanded. But some of these girls are pitching 200, in a game, and then they can do it back to back. And that's another, again, completely different, but it's still your arm and your body. And you look around, LSU today, they win this region. I believe they will, but what are the keys going to be? Who's going to be starting on the mound again tonight or today? I guess at 2.
Well, Rob, I don't know if you know or not, but Jay Johnson is a football coach who is LSU's baseball coach. He is very, I ain't telling you who I'm pitching until the lineup card goes in. Don't ask me about injuries, that kind of thing. And so I would guess he would go with Javen Coleman. That seems to be the popular. If Javen can go maybe 3 or 4, and then Riley Cooper come in maybe to go 3 or 4 if he could, and then on the back half just piecemeal it and get the outs. And then, I don't want to bring it up, but last year LSU won the first 2 games in Hattiesburg. We're in the catbird seat and lost 2 to Southern Miss. So, that first game, I'd say first, it could be the only, but when a team's got to beat you twice, the best thing to do, obviously, is to knock them out, and don't give them any hope. Because once you lose that first game, pressure, and then can we win this next game? And if we don't, our season's over. That whole dynamic shifts really quick. So, I would hope that LSU, wins the first game and takes care of business. But they're still pretty in pretty good shape on their pitching.
And you get down 3-0, 4-0 in the first inning. All of a sudden, that pressure, especially in the NCAA regional, as the game goes on, every guy coming up to the plate is trying to get a home run and to win the game. You can just see the pressure at this level. Outside of all the SEC schools, who were you the most surprised about that got knocked out early, and who are you surprised is still in it?
Well, I don't know how surprised I am, but Vanderbilt not getting out of their regional, that's pretty surprising. I mean, I know Nolan Kane from years as an LSU pitcher and then an assistant coach with Texas A&M. Those guys obviously struggled a lot during the year. I think they played pretty well at the SEC tournament, and now I think they've got a chance to go to a super if they win today. So rooting for those guys. Arkansas, like you said, getting blitzed the way they did. Now they're still alive, right? They've got a chance to advance. But this tournament, throw out. We pay so much attention to RPI and seeds and all that, and once they get in, I mean. It's baseball. Skip Burton would say, hey, it ain't football. Okay, you can't just run them over. Okay, you can't just like out muscle people. It's a crazy game of hitting and pitching and fielding and all that. And where, a school like Dallas Baptist, who a lot of people have never really heard of till in recent years, can do big things. So. SEC, I think, is obviously the best conference in America. And once you make it through that 30 game grind of the SEC and then go through the conference tournament, you're pretty beat up, and but then hopefully you don't play any SEC teams in a regional, and then you're ready to go in a super, which, like I said, LSU could be playing Kentucky in a super next weekend.
Yeah. Jacques, we'll take a quick break and come back just for a couple of quick questions, and we'll let you go. I've got several football questions that have been texted in. But, the difference, is this similar to the NCAA March Madness? I don't know, but it's growing in popularity, which is great for baseball. The ball, the bats, we'll talk about it more right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Jacques, football questions coming in. One of them is Mason Smith. He got injured, I remember, last year in the Florida State game at the Superdome, jumping up after a big play celebration, tore his ACL. He's had surgery. LSU is one of those elite schools where the front seven is just legendary. How's he doing after the surgery? It usually takes, I'm not a doctor, but, about a year, and you got to get your confidence back. So he's, 9 months into his recovery?
Yeah, that was really rough to see. It was the opening drive of the season against Florida State. He just ran through the air and jumped up. He was happy. He hits the ground, and something was terribly wrong. He has done an amazing job staying engaged with the team throughout the year. Some guys get injured, they disappear, they get depressed, which he definitely had. He was down like anybody would be down, especially after everyone said he might be the best player on the team and was poised to have a tremendous season. But, you see LSU warming up for games, and he'd be out there helping his teammates warm up and get ready. He made the trip to the bowl game in Orlando. He was there for all the events. There was a huge pep rally in front of a bunch of LSU fans. Coach Kelly gave him the mic. He spoke to the crowd before the game, once again, helping guys warm up. So he has stayed engaged with everything, even though he couldn't play. He did some things in the spring a little bit, and then he's been cleared for full full go moving forward. So he's an outstanding young man, and he's a hard worker, and he's a great kid. And this will be his money year to go out in his third season and have a tremendous year, and then hopefully be a high draft pick. But yeah, LSU certainly had their share of big time defensive linemen over the years. Perhaps the most talented LSU's had is Kyle Williams, who maybe some people don't know about as much because he played in Buffalo, but he played his entire career in Buffalo and had an amazing pro career.
Yeah. Here's another one. SEC spring meetings in Destin last week. Big discussion about 1-7 or 3-6. Looks like the temporary stopgap measure is going to be the 1-7. Greg Sankey, smart guy, very powerful, influential in college athletics. Does he have that much influence where he can just say, I want 3-6, let's all do 3-6 versus the 1-7? And what are you in favor of?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of paid attention to that stuff. And why? So everyone feels like the SEC copped out because they didn't go to 9 instead of 8, meaning what? They didn't give themselves a tough schedule so they can ease into the playoff. Was that the national discussion? Or
the national, a lot of it was, well, the Big Ten plays 9, the Pac-12 plays 9, and the reply was, well, we play 8. And I think even Greg Sankey may have referenced that, how much did that help TCU prepare for Georgia? And we saw what happened in the CFP championship game. Look, as an Auburn man, I want to see Auburn play Alabama and Georgia and LSU. But I also want to see Auburn pick up Florida and Tennessee. I miss those great rivalries, but you also want to get in the college football playoff, and you're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas. You're bringing sand to the beach. So it's an argument that's got good arguments on every side, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember for years Saban said he wanted a 9-game SEC schedule, and now I think he says he wants 8, and they're saying that's because he saw who his 3 permanent opponents are moving forward. I mean, this kind of has nothing to do with anything, but from my perspective and some of the fans' perspective, what I hear them complaining about is, I don't want to go to Starkville and Oxford every other year. Why is it that we only go to Athens once every, whatever? LSU had been to Athens since 2013. LSU barely goes to Lexington. They hadn't really been to Columbia, Missouri since the guys joined the conference. They were forced to go during COVID because of crazy stuff going on. So I think that LSU fans like to travel and go to different places and have some variety in there. Charles Hannegriff, who has always brought up that Peyton Manning played 4 years at Tennessee. He never played in Tiger Stadium. Herschel Walker played, at Georgia, never came to Tiger Stadium to play a game. And so those are the kind of things where the schedule has been kind of funky. But another thing is, okay, you're going to have, that's going to be 16 teams in the league. Divisions go away. So what if some team says, hey, we got 2 losses, but we had to play Georgia and Alabama, and you didn't? What are the tiebreakers going to be to grab 2 teams out of 16 to go to the SEC? I mean, I guess they've got to figure out. I don't know, but that sounds like a roll of the dice.
Well, and a lot of people are just, well, these other conferences play 9, you got to play 9. And I still, the 3-6 or 1-7, you're still going to play everybody twice, it looks like, over a 4-year period if you stay for 4 years at a school. And that's a big if now, because we know about the transfer portal, and a lot of guys are gone after 3 years anyway. So getting to those kinds of players, Harold Perkins came on the scene last year in a big way, especially on the road win at Arkansas. And he needed to, because I think, what did LSU win that game? 13-10. He had 4 sacks, but I don't like it when people talk about a sophomore slump. I think it's more, wow, a freshman doing all that. How can you do better as a sophomore? This is a guy that seems like he's dialed in completely on, hey, I want to be the best there ever has been at LSU. Is he that good in your opinion?
Well, we sat down with Brian Kelly the other day and did an interview with him, and he said that last year LSU's defensive coordinator, Matt House, did a really good job of drawing things up in the dirt, basically, to get Harold Perkins on the field and to make him an impact. And so I think it was kind of fun to say, hey, Harold, Go chase after the quarterback. Go chase after Bryce Young. Go chase. And so now it's like, okay, it's kind of like a basketball player that comes in and shoots a bunch of threes. All right, I need you to do some other stuff now. And so I think now it's like, okay, you got to drop back in pass coverage. You got to fill gaps in the run responsibility. And so I think now it's going to be more of a, can he play the whole big picture? Last year, he definitely flashed and was electric and around the ball and exciting and amazing. You know, I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just telling you what the head coaches told me. So, sophomore coming into this year, but certainly, and another thing is I don't think we've ever interviewed him. I know he was a true freshman last year, and true freshmen were always pretty much off limits, but we talked to Mason Taylor and Will Campbell and Emory Jones and some of those guys. And I have not seen Harold Perkins ever do an interview. So we'll maybe this year we'll get him to talk a little bit and hear from the guy. But I think that's he's an electric player, and we're kind of talking about who will LSU bring to SEC Media Days. I don't think they'll bring Harold Perkins, but LSU, he's definitely one of the biggest stars on the team.
Oh, no doubt. Look, Jacques, I know you got a big day ahead of you getting out. What time are you heading to the ballpark?
Well, I got a text message bright and early at 7:22 saying, hey, you going to be live at noon for us today? Get up. I'm just waking up. Okay, yeah, I'll get out there. But, I'm going to probably go for a little jog here and probably get there around 10 a.m. or so. So,
listen, man, we always love having you on here. Let people know how they can keep up with you. Two-time Louisiana Sportscaster of the Year, Jacques Doucet.
Well, Rob, appreciate it. At Jacques Doucet, like my name is spelled here on Twitter, WAFB.com. I'm on Facebook, obviously, as well. And WAFB.com live streams our sportscast as well. So YouTube, go check out some of our Jacques Talk interviews, long formatted interviews with people like Kim Mulkey and Brian Kelly and on down the line. So check that out. And I enjoyed seeing that picture of you at the beginning with the sunglasses and the hair. I think you were on your way to a Guns N' Roses concert, if I'm not mistaken.
And that was at A-Day. That was A-Day down at Auburn back in like 2014 or whatever like that. See, I was going to say one other thing. The media days coming up, mid-July, cranking up in Nashville.
Through the 19th in July in Nashville. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, football magazines are out. I got Lindy's and Athlon's, so you've probably seen them. But hey, it never is a dull moment. But I am an SEC guy. My school's out, but I will be pulling for y'all today. Look forward to having you on again soon.
That's always an exciting time of year. As a kid growing up, you used to go to Eckerd's and K&B, and they'd have that magazine rack, and you go get Athlon's and Lindy's, and they'd sucker you in. Even when LSU stunk with Curly Hallman, they put one of the LSU guys on the front cover, regional. And
they would always have some comment like, Tigers look to rebound, and even Vanderbilt, you can get excited, go, Doors look to build on last year's success. 3 wins could be within reach. All right. Have a great day. Be careful out there.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. That is Jacques Doucet, WAFB. Channel 9 down in Baton Rouge. Going to be joined here in just a moment by David Schultz over in Lafayette, Louisiana, at University of Louisiana. Covers them, Sunbelt, locked on Sunbelt. Has a grasp on what is going on in these NCAA baseball regionals. And we're going to get more in depth and talk about it. But I think we've seen a lot like what happened in basketball in the NCAA tournament. I kept saying all season long, guests that we had on here would agree, coaches, players, different writers, that you see the teams, the true teams, when you get into the NCAA tournament, March Madness. You also see it in baseball. Because of the virus year, there are a lot of guys that have been around 5 and 6 years. And that's significant when you're talking about baseball and development and all. So, and I'm going to talk with David Schultz, and we just had Jacques Doucet on over at Channel 9 in Baton Rouge.
Well, you got him up early, didn't you?
Yeah, no, he was about to go run. He is really, really kind to come on here with us, and I'm sure he was up there late last night. Watching University of Louisiana, that Miami regional, it goes along. I think we saw Texas wins the Miami region. David, it's so much like basketball now. You saw Auburn just get trucked in their region. Clemson, they get knocked out by Tennessee. Tennessee seems like they're a much more relaxed team this year. Arkansas, man, their backs are against the wall. Florida's got to come out today and win it. LSU's got to win it. Vandy gets knocked out of their region. Your takeaway from all of this to this point?
Oh, well, it's been crazy. And obviously, it's different when it's a baseball game. These things go faster. But, when you're concentrating on a couple of different games, it's really much more difficult to find out the details. I mean, Rob, I think they gave the error to the shortstop, but I would have given it to the first baseman, right? I mean, Troy is going to be in the winner's bracket, and in the blink of an eye, they're out, right? They're going to beat Alabama. They're going to take down Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And then, before I think I was back from Baton Rouge during the delay yesterday, Troy is out. Cajuns, the other teams played better. What can I tell you? Texas, Gordon, the first pitcher was outstanding. Center fielder robs the Cajun second baseman John Taylor of a 3-run home run. I thought maybe Matt Days was a little bit quick with the hook for Jackson Nazu, who was pitching really well into the 6th inning. They had chances. They did have their chances, and Texas just a little bit better. Bats came alive against Maine, which was nice to see. Caleb Stelly, who hasn't played since May the 5th. He does not have an at-bat since May the 5th. He almost goes a month. He goes 2 for 4, drives in drives in 2, scores 3 runs, hits a home run off the All-American Andrew Walters, makes it a 1-run game. But too much yo-yo, too many bats for Miami. And the Cajuns couldn't quite get to a Rosario enough, who made some pitches. The kid, I mean, you could see he's got electric stuff. What looks to be like, why are you swinging to that pitch? Starts on the left side of the plate, if we're looking at it from behind the pitcher, and ends up a foot inside. And you're like, why are you swinging and missing at that? Well, because it looked like a strike when it left his hand. So a little bit too much for the Cajuns. You still got, in terms of the Sun Belt, you still got Southern Miss, who had a huge 9th inning last night, and Coastal Carolina, which one of the crazier games. I mean, I've never seen such quite a cocky reliever as Ryder has, and he kept on giving it up, and he was saved by his center fielder, and all he was throwing was like these breaking balls, and I'm not even sure they were for strikes. But Ryder won that ball game. Coastal, though, they can, they play Duke, and they can win that, and Southern Miss plays Penn, and they can win that, and all of a sudden, a couple of teams are in the a couple of teams from the Sun Belt are in the Super Regionals, and I don't know how this goes. Who's hosting, but if Southern Miss wins, who's hosting between Tennessee and Southern Miss? Because the guys from D1 Baseball said that Southern Miss outdrew Tennessee in the Supers last year. So it'll be really interesting to see who hosts if it is Southern Miss and Tennessee for that Super Regional.
That'll be interesting. I do remember last year, and Jacques was just talking about it, LSU won those first 2 games over in Hattiesburg, and then they're out. And then Ole Miss goes down to Hattiesburg, and those crowds in Hattiesburg were off the charts. I mean, they couldn't put another person in there.
Rob, it is a different entity, okay?
Yeah.
So being here, right, we have Cajuns fans, right, and LSU fans, but there's a serious overlap. I know there's a vocal minority of Cajuns fans that don't like LSU, but 80 to 90% of Cajuns fans are LSU fans. It's the way it is, right? They're both.
Yeah.
In Alabama, right? You have Auburn fans and Alabama fans and South Alabama fans, and South Alabama football will move the game the final weekend of the season, depending on when the Iron Bowl is, right? Like they will play on, it wasn't a thing, it's a thing now, but they'll play on Black Friday to avoid the Iron Bowl, because that's what it is, right? Most of our fans are not Southern Miss. They have their own, probably small, but they have their own fanatical set of fans, whether it's for baseball, basketball, or football, other than Ole Miss and Mississippi State. It is, I don't know where Mississippi ranks in, population in the country. I'm sure it's towards the bottom, but there is a nice set of Southern Miss Golden Eagles. That's it. We don't care about Ole Miss. We don't care about Mississippi State. They're there. They're not putting them down. It's not they dislike them. It's just we are Southern Miss fans, and it's a lot of fun to see. And you can see it by the numbers of the of my Locked On Sunbelt. You can see it when they get interested, and it is fascinating to see.
Well, it is, and you think about they've got what 43, 44 wins. And if they win this regional today and they beat Penn a second time,
Right.
I would think they're going to host. Nothing against Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's an SEC school, but Sun Belt, look at Coastal Carolina, Troy's there and they're not. Louisiana goes down to Miami, but you could have, Southern Miss. You could have Coastal Carolina, two teams in these super regions.
Coastal would go to Virginia.
Yeah, and
how about that?
Look, they were the national champions in 2015 or 2016. Southern Miss, this is it for their coach. He's out. He's been coaching a long time.
No, the Southern Miss coach is retiring after this year. The Coastal Carolina coach is retiring after next season.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I'm with you about Southern Miss. They might as well. They don't have any use for Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
I got one question for you, Rob.
Hold on, Rob. Hold a minute. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with David Schultz. Okay, back with David Schultz. And David, Southern Miss.
Hold on, one question.
Yeah.
I got one question. When was the last time you drank a Hamm's beer?
Yesterday or Saturday.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, hey, I love it. Hey, Audrey, her maiden name is Ham. So about 7 years ago, she went by Kroger in Memphis and brought over a 24 pack. In Tennessee, you can only get a 24. In Arkansas, you can buy the 30 rack for $15.98. And I have become I'm just a big fan of Hams. And we got this sign from a friend of Audrey's out in Collierville, who's a beer and wine and liquor rep. And he gave it to us. And I was like, hell yeah, I'd love to have that Hams. Nobody made better commercials than Hams, Dave.
No kidding.
Remember the Jeep with the grizzly bear? It was Grizzly Adams or whoever that was. But yeah, it was the official beer of the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field for a long time. What's the official beer at Baton Rouge?
I don't know. I think they're big on Natty Lights here in Lafayette. That's a big thing with the kid, like $2 natural lights. Yeah.
That's the one you can get. The cheapest the college kids get over here, $12 for a 30 rack in Arkansas of the Rio. I think it's called a Frio or whatever. It's really cheap beer. Let's talk about this Coastal Carolina Sun Belt. Troy, and I'm getting all kind of comments that, here's a comment from someone saying the whatever Alabama needs to happen will happen is not exclusive to football. But I'll counter that by saying it damn sure didn't happen in basketball against San Diego State.
Well, yeah. So it's very odd, that Alabama is this underdog. And this may be, let's be honest, Rob, this is one of the crazier stories that I'm not sure. Again, I'm just watching the games. I'm not listening to the national coverage as much as it should. A month ago, Alabama wasn't going to the tournament and their coach got fired for allegedly, apparently, perhaps betting against the team.
Yeah.
And now they're going to the Super Regionals.
Yeah.
Hosting a Super Regional, right? Are they hosting? No, I don't think they're hosting. But they're going to the Super Regionals. I mean, this is a crazy story. So
it is.
Good for them. Good for the kids. Good for the coach who took over. My God, it's amazing on what you can do when you have somebody believe in you, right? I mean, we're all about, we don't want to hand out trophies for everybody, but a little positive reinforcement, you can see it can go a long way. And Again, Alabama was going nowhere at the beginning of May. And, I remember I woke up, put the computer on, and they're like, Alabama taking off because of a crazy betting against LSU. That's not good. By Thursday, the coach was fired. And, about 6 weeks later, they're going to be in a super regional. And they were 1 out away from going to the loser's bracket. I'm not saying they wouldn't have won, but Troy should have been in control of that regional. And it was gone in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, it was. Let's go back now. I want to switch back to the SEC spring meetings last week. We talked about it with Jacques a minute ago. 1-7 or 3-6 on the scheduling. That's going to be talked about a lot. The temporary, I guess, for 23 and 24 is a 1-7 versus 3-6. What are you in favor of?
What are you talking about?
On the scheduling in the SEC.
Right.
The 1-7 or the 3-6.
1-7 being.
You mean you play one permanent opponent, 7 different opponents, which means you play everybody twice in a 4-year period, or 3-6 where you keep 3 permanent opponents and then you rotate 6.
Well, I mean,
what's the difference?
Right. I mean, it's really tough to feel bad for Nick Saban, right? I mean, it really is, right? Because everybody is Alabama's, rival, right? It doesn't matter who it is, right? I mean, Ole Miss has a rival, and that's Mississippi State. A&M doesn't really have a rival, although they're getting it back with Texas. LSU doesn't really have a rival. They think it's Alabama, but Alabama's rivals are Auburn and Tennessee. And so Nick Saban, in typical Nick Saban fashion, yaps a lot about 9-game schedule. And then all of a sudden, nope, 8 because I don't like the 3 teams we're playing. I mean, how long did Tennessee go without beating Alabama? And all of a sudden,
15 straight years.
They squeaked past him, and now he doesn't want to play Tennessee every year. I mean, come on. I mean.
I think in the last 15 years.
To me, Rob, it was an odd vote, right? Because it's not so much, and Georgia voted for it, and LSU voted for it, and I think A&M voted for it. But it's usually those middling, the Kentuckys, the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States, the Missouris. Missouri voted for it, right? And these are the guys that, that 6th win, that 7th win is important, right? I mean, Mark's going to have an entire career of winning 8 to 10 ball games a year, and he's a multi-millionaire. Yeah, doesn't have to compete for a championship or not. Doesn't have to.
Well,
just has to
the argument,
putting up a good product and win some games and go to a bowl game.
Yeah, and then the argument is, does ESPN right now, and you look at this is their 5th round of layoffs in the last 10 years that they're going through. Disney cut 7,000 jobs, but ESPN has changed a lot, and I don't know what that really means, but you go back about 20 years ago.
I'm going to tell you, Rob, that I think that has to do with stock price. They are not really right. I mean, they're going to. How much are they actually going to save on a multi-billion-dollar company? And what are they saving? Something like $25 to $50 million. Is that really turning the bottom line around? Exactly. Right. And then they go sign McAfee. Right. They signed some guys to some long-term contracts. And now SEC wants extra money because Alabama's going to play Vanderbilt. Come on. I mean, just play the games. You can't, the SEC can't tell me it's about the money and then complain about the kids getting the money. Right.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, does ESPN, can they really look themselves in the mirror and say, we're going to lay people off? And then if the SEC were to go to a 3-6, that's another game. Have they budgeted that in already versus 1-7, which is what the deal was made on? So there's funny stuff. ESPN was in 100 million homes, say 20 years ago. Now they're in 73 million. Those are the latest numbers. But there's 25.3 million people subscribed to ESPN Plus. Right. And you're paying $6 a month? Yeah. 10. And you can get, look, this is why I believe that Apple is going to buy ESPN in the next year or two, because Tim Cook is on the board of directors of the National Football Foundation. And Tim Cook is from Robertsdale, Baldwin County. He's an Auburn grad. He loves football. Somebody I could see doing that. Maybe it's Fox, but Yeah, you're right. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, billions, and you're going to
Not
save
saving that
40 to
much
50
money.
million.
Yeah. They're cutting people who are making, for the most part, they're cutting people who are making, I mean, a lot of money to you and me, a few hundred thousand, but they're not, we'll see if any big time guys in front of the camera get laid off. I want to see this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to cut Screaming A.
Think
Smith.
so.
No. I mean,
No.
I don't see them cutting Kirk Herbstreit or Reese Davis or anyone like
Desmond
that.
Howard. Yeah. No.
Yeah. They always act like we're going to making these cuts, but they really don't make anything substantial. But the bottom line is, if you go to a 9-game schedule in the SEC, that's another loss. And those teams that are fighting, like you say, just for bowl eligibility for that extra 20 days of practice, that is a damn big deal to those teams.
Yeah, it is.
Here's another one. This has been brought up. We're going to go to the 12-team college football playoff from 4 to 12.
Right.
You can potentially see a 9-3 or 10-2 SEC team make the playoff.
Sure.
But what about and Jackie Sherrill was on the show with us a couple of weeks ago.
No,
he's been saying this for 31 years. Coach Sherrill said it's all about eyeballs, and you're going to have 60 teams in these super conferences like the NFL model, AFC West and East, and NFC East and West. Would you be in favor? He likes the idea, and I do too, of a national championship for the other schools because it's going to be just as important to them. But you're going to have a group of 5 schools that are going to make the 12-team playoff more and more.
Right. Well, and here's what comes with this. You want unintended consequences because I'm a big fan of the 12-team playoff, and I think it'll go to 16 because that's what Division III does. And that's enough, right? And we're always going to get the 13th team or the 17th team complaining.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, right? I mean, you got 64 teams in the college playoff, college NCAA tournament, and Kansas State was complaining, right? UC Irvine complained. So the last teams that don't get in are always going to complain. But you want pressure, and not for some reason, we know why, that it didn't quite go as well as hoped, is Billy Napier is or is not on the hot seat in Florida. Now, I don't happen to think that's fair, and I'm a Billy Napier homer. I freely admit that. But his problem is that the team winning the national championship 2 times in a row is in his division and is his rival, okay?
Yeah.
So you get a 12-team playoff, right? You can, when it's a 14 playoff and you say, well, there's only 4 teams, someone's not going to get in, then you can talk about that. But all of a sudden, you're going to see these coaches not make it to year 4 if they're not getting into the playoffs. All right? You can't complain. The Penn States of the world, who always have these good years but don't quite measure up, can't miss the playoff more than a couple of times. When there's 12 teams getting in, you got to make the playoff. These coaches, you think the coaches are under pressure now, wait until those 12-team playoffs come in. Right, Rob, what's going to happen at the end of this year? Right? People are going to go nuts in Alabama because Nick Saban's not going to win a championship for 3 straight years, which has not happened since he's been in Alabama. But he's not going to win it. I'll go on record as saying that. And it's going to go crazy. Think about what these other teams are going to do if they're not in the playoff.
Yeah.
Yep.
They will. Interesting comments.
Quick, right? Napier better right the ship quick. Brian Kelly is going to have a turnover in quarterback after this year. He's got to be in spot for a playoff. Is Lane Kiffin going to be found out? Well, he's got a nice 9-win season there, but he's not going to get in, right? What is are they going to be all set after Caleb Williams leaves? Lincoln Riley at USC, how's that going to look? You got a lot of guys. What about the guy, Mario Cristobal down in Miami? They looked really bad last year. He's got one more year to get that headed in the right direction. And if he's on the outside looking in, have that first 12-team playoff, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. So that's coming.
There will be. An interesting comment from a listener down in Fairhope, Alabama. There's not much going on in and around Southeast Mississippi. Having lived in Bay St. Louis for 3 years, it's pretty low key. That's why the Southern Miss baseball program has taken off in the last couple of years. Strong following there. Of course,
they're like Northwest Mississippi, aren't they?
No, Southern Miss.
Or Northeast. They're in the north.
No. Hattiesburg.
Is it the north? West?
No, they're in the southern part of the state, down 100 miles above New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'm saying, I think that.
What does that have to do with anything? There's nothing going on in Starkville. What's going on in Tuscaloosa?
That's the point.
I mean,
But he was just saying that there's a huge following of people down there on the coast
I'm not buying
that support Southern
not
Miss.
much going on.
Well, I think there's a lot going on.
I've been to Fairhope. What's going on in Fairhope? By the way,
yeah.
Rob, Fairhope has a great little cute downtown with breweries and maybe the best chicken tenders I've ever had. But I mean,
but it's Fairhope's one of the best places to retire. A lot of people are moving down there. But all these areas, this is.
I was at that Grand Hotel. Goodness.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is why college baseball in the Southeast is just exploding in popularity, because a lot of people are moving to these college towns because there's really you say there's nothing going on, but it's not like the craziness in Memphis or in Atlanta. It's completely different.
Those are cities,
and that's the
right?
allure.
Those are cities. I mean, what's going on in Auburn?
Yeah. It's the same. I agree with you. I totally.
They're small, quaint college towns. Some bigger than others, right?
Yeah, but that's what people love about being there. And okay, let's look here on the football side. And you're mentioning it. A team that has not been a factor in recruiting for 3 years basically had a closed for business sign in the front window. Auburn, they are back in the game. They're going after every one of these 4- and 5-star recruits that Alabama and Georgia have had. That's going to change things as well. If you look at Saban, he's got 5 losses to Auburn, 5 to LSU, and 1 to Tennessee. And he's suddenly worried about Tennessee. I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to be another very strong year. Last year, I picked them to win 10 games. They did. They won 11. They went 11-2. But Saban, this quarterback situation, I mean, he obviously – Ty Simpson, I think, is their future. He's not there. He might be like Mac Jones. It could be a while. But it's a cruel, vicious world in the SEC. I mean, it's Georgia right now is pushing so hard, and everything that happens over there, the Bama fans are saying, what's happening here? You know what I'm talking about. That's how it is in that state.
Yeah. We'll see. Auburn is getting a lot of guys in the transfer portal, and maybe they are under-recruited, right? They get the defensive end from linebacker from App State. I think we talked about him before, right? He's getting recruited by and now he's at Auburn, right? Taking a kid from Jackson State, right? So they're getting a bunch of kids in the transfer portal. And I'm looking at Cole Kubelik and a couple of these guys he's saying are the best guys in the room. Well, what happened, right? These guys are the best guys in the room. So we'll see. Also, the quarterback situation in Auburn, right? Who's that quarterback, right? Is the Michigan State transfer?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Peyton Thorne can come down here. The one thing that Mike Gittins, the War Report talked about was that he has trouble when he's flushed out of the pocket. I mean, it's very difficult in the SEC to just stand in the pocket. You're going to get rushed. It is vicious, and there's not much. You're not going to have much time to stand in the pocket. Peyton Thorne in the Big Ten, he started 26 games. Again, Holden Gehringer. Robbie Ashford is working out with some quarterback guru in the workouts that I've seen. He's working on his mechanics. I mean, this guy, speed-wise, is the fastest quarterback in college football. But you better get that throwing motion down. But in the case of Nick Saban, again, look at Auburn historically. They've always had to play Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida. And Alabama has been able to have Vanderbilt on the schedule for decades while successfully dodging Georgia and Florida in the regular season for the most part, except in Atlanta if they played for the SEC championship. Nobody has ever given Auburn any quarter for playing the toughest schedule in the league year in and year out. I mean, look at it. It's Auburn or Arkansas every year. Trying to dodge people, I'm not going to follow you on that one. I mean, you need to play. Hey, you play who they tell you to play, and lobbying. Do what?
Exactly. Right. And Nick Saban, I'll give you another example of Nick Saban. Nick Saban's very big about playing in-state teams. You know how many in-state teams he plays? None.
Zero. Yeah, zero.
You know who he plays? he plays Southern Miss. He'll play ULM. He'll play the Raging Cajuns. Won't play Troy. Won't play UAB. Won't play South Alabama. And I don't know why. Auburn does.
Yeah.
I think South Alabama is going to Auburn next year, right? And both Auburn and Alabama have come down to Mobile to play basketball, which is great for them, right? They both won, right? Alabama had a little bit more of a easier time. Auburn almost lost that ball game a few years back.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, it's great for Mobile. It's great for South Alabama. These guys come down, can recruit some players down there, right? You got the kid from Baker. He was going to Auburn. Did we find out where he's going?
Not sure where now.
Darius
Philon.
But anyway, there's plenty of talent down
there.
And I mean, is Nick Saban really threatened by recruiting by Kane Womack in South Alabama? I mean, play style. Why? That's why all those times back in the day when Boeheim's playing Buffalo, who actually beat him a couple of times, or St. Francis, or some of these lesser schools in New York. It's supporting basketball in New York, so I didn't really care. Cornell, Colgate, those used to be big time rivals back in the day. Yeah. But it's supporting basketball in the state. And so, okay, it's a fluffy schedule, but, it's easier travel for them. They're saving money. They bus in, bus out. I mean, why can't you do that? LSU will do that. LSU plays Southeastern and McNeese and ULM. They won't play the Raging Cajuns. That's a different story. But LSU plays the in-state, power or group of 5 schools, but Alabama won't, and I don't know why.
Well, to me, look, Nick Saban is a great coach. He's you can't argue that. But if you got to play Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee every year, big deal. Don't whine about it. I mean, right. Auburn plays Georgia, Alabama, and LSU every year. Okay, and that's just the way it is. Until they just changed it, they had to play Georgia a week off against a lesser opponent than Alabama. They got it moved to the Georgia game now, late September, early October. What's the difference? They're going to throw A&M or LSU in there for you. They ought to change the game back to the way it was. It was in hindsight, they gained nothing. And Georgia is having the greatest success in their 131 years of college football. But for Nick Saban, hey man, if it's 3-6, think about the conference. Everything doesn't revolve around you or Georgia or Florida or Auburn or Tennessee. You got to think about the conference. And I'm with you. Why not play the spring games? We've seen that proposed. Auburn play Troy, Alabama play South Alabama or UAB.
I guess so.
But also play them in the regular season. I'm also for the regular season.
Here's the one problem with that one.
Yeah.
Are the quarterbacks going to be untouchable?
Of course. They will.
But okay, so it's not a real game.
Exactly.
It's like these joint NFL practices.
Yeah. You still got to play in the fall.
Yeah, play in the fall. Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. This thing about you're worried, what if we lost to them? Well, scared man and scared money doesn't make money in the stock market.
We're not going to lose to him. What's he afraid that someone's going to, end up, you're going to get out recruited by Troy? Come on.
Look, Alabama lost to Louisiana Monroe their first year.
Yeah, but that was
there. They got over it. No, I know, but I'm saying that they got over it. If you're scared, you cannot be scared to play people. You know what? If you're a successful program, you ought to be man enough to say, hey, man, we'll play. Bobby Bowden built Florida State on a mantra of any place, anytime, anywhere.
Well, who's good at that? I'll tell you who's good at that is the LSU baseball program. And I think Jay Johnson has carried it on. I presume Skip Bertman started it, but Paul Maneri carried it when I was here, right? Yeah. And so every year, LSU rotates who they go to, right? Whether it's Tulane, they come to the Cajuns. They'll play at McNeese. They'll play at La Tech because they know they're LSU, right? We're not going to really get out recruited by some of these group of 5 teams, right? And if we do, we'll get the next guy, right? Yeah. But now we're building our LSU brand, not that they need to, but we're spreading the LSU brand across the state. Also, those same teams, whether it's a home and home one year, I think they went across, they went across town to Southern, right? They played at Southern, right? That's cool. Right. And they're not so worried about winning the ball game as they are. Let's play, a fellow Louisiana school. And so the baseball team does it right. I know they have a lot more games to do it with, but, they rotate where they play and when they play. And I think that's a great tradition. Cajun softball and LSU softball do it now. But, when I first got here, 10 years ago or so, they weren't playing at all except in the
Mhm.
postseason. And this
Yeah.
year, Rob, they had a home and home the same weekend. How great is
Yeah.
that? It's great for
Yeah.
the teams. It's great for the fans. It costs no money, right? We're bussing in and we're bussing back.
Yep. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Play the teams in your state, and it's branding, and with the portal, you're also recruiting when you go to their campuses. I mean, it's a different world. But
Right.
look, Dave,
How many Hams
run out of
beers
time
did
for
you
this
have
segment.
yesterday?
Do what?
How many Hams beers did you have yesterday?
I had 2 Saturday night. I only
Okay.
had a few left. They've rebranded the can, but go to your local grocer and see if you can find. Hey, tell people how they can follow you, because you're Locked On Sunbelt Conference podcast ought to be pretty interesting. But tell them how they can follow you. And
Boy, if we can get some teams in the College World Series, we're looking for at least 2 in the Super Regional. Well, not at least 2. We're looking for 2. Southern Miss plays. Who do they got? They got Penn.
yeah,
Coastal Carolina's got 2. Can follow me, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day on YouTube. Please like and share. And you can also get it wherever you get your podcast audio, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, iHeart. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's a big help. I'm going to try and do a bonus one because last night I was recording during the Southern Miss ball game. So we'll put out a second one here. And quickly you'll see that there's a big Southern Miss fan base.
oh yeah, no doubt. Dave, thanks so much. We'll do it again next week, talking more baseball.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that is Dave Schultz down in Lafayette, Louisiana. Love having him on here talking Sunbelt. He's been really, doing a great job of showcasing those teams. Locked On Sunbelt podcast. I would follow it if I were you. Dave really does a lot of research, does his homework, stays on top of it. Coach Matt Dean over at Rhodes College and Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com are on with us right now. And guys, we've been talking a lot with Jacques Doucet down in Baton Rouge, who covers LSU, WAFB Channel 9. And that, of course, David Schultz in Lafayette covers Louisiana, the Sun Belt, the SEC, and baseball. This is an exciting tournament. It's a lot now. I wouldn't call these upsets. It's just we're not familiar with these teams. But the regional play has been exciting. It's been extremely competitive. And you've got Florida going to the last day to win their region today. Arkansas, same thing. LSU, Auburn's already out. Vanderbilt's already out. Tennessee goes on the road to Clemson and gets the win there. Kentucky's got to play today against Indiana, who started their season off at Auburn. Lot of stuff, a lot of storylines, and I'll get started with you, Franz, and then Matt. If you're a coach, you had to know it was going to be competitive. Did you see this much competition in that Gainesville region before it started?
Well, I personally thought Texas Tech should have been the number 2 seed. I mean, there really isn't a lot of difference between 2 and 3 since they play each other in the first game. But I still felt Texas Tech deserved the 2 seed. Tim Tadlock does a tremendous job there. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. I would put him in my top 5 or top 6 coaches in the country. They are just so well coached. And you talk about a guy that really is kid oriented. I mean, you understand why those kids love him so much. He's got a very competitive team here. They got a kid named Gavin Cash, who's a freshman, who is going to be a first rounder in a couple of years. I mean, tremendous kid. But Florida has shown some resilience here. Florida lost a game it should have won. That was Saturday night. They gave the game away. Basically, they had runners in scoring position in 5 different innings, and they only scored 3 runs. They should have 4 runs. They should have scored 7 or 8. But wind was blowing in. We had a couple of balls that should have been home runs that got caught at the fence because we had hurricane force winds. It seemed, weren't really, but it's Florida, so everybody wants to say it's hurricane force. But the wind was holding it up. Caglione hit one Saturday that if there'd been no wind, it would have cleared the center field wall, the green monster in center field, as it was. Their center fielder made just an absolute magnificent catch at the wall, robbed him of a home run. So it's been that kind of series. And then yesterday morning, Caglione hits 2 home runs. Hurston Waldrop, the last 8 outs he recorded were all via strikeout. And then last night we go with Cade Fisher, a freshman from Dalton, Georgia, who has 1 start to his career. He goes 7 innings against that team, gives up 5 hits, doesn't walk anybody. And then Caglione got the hit that counted when they needed it. So it's been such a competitive and interesting series here. I think Florida has the pitching advantage here, but you don't know. You get to these last games, and it's all hands on deck. And, you might see one of these things where you get 9 pitchers pitching an inning each for both teams, and somebody may get hot and be able to go 3 or 4. But it's going to be a great ball game. Comes on at noon, and we're going to see what the Gators have, if they've got it in them to come back. We've had an 8-game win streak. We've had a 6 and a 5 this year, several 4s. But when you get to this point and you got to win 3 in a row against quality opposition, that's a hard thing to do. And Texas Tech is quality.
Yeah, they are. Matt, like what Franz is saying, everybody shows up. I think they seeded a lot of these teams lower than they've proven to be in these regionals so far, hadn't they?
Yeah, and Franz made a really good point at the end, I thought. Hello, Franz. I haven't seen you in a while. But the pitching, what do you have left in pitching? I watch a lot of college baseball. I work a lot of college baseball games with my job, albeit at a different level. But when you're talking the 3rd or 4th day of competition, right, yeah, you've expended a lot of arms. It's unlike any other sport. When I expend a pitcher over 100 pitches, he's probably not going to pitch for a while unless you give him an inning in a bullpen situation 2 days later, right? So whoever's got the most pitching left, and Franz, I think of the games today, we got 6 out of 7 SEC home games, I believe. I'm looking at this, and I think Tennessee and Alabama have already advanced to Super Regionals, so they could still have I'm not saying they're all going to win, but could have 9 SEC teams still going to the Super Regionals if my math's correct, which is just incredible once again to the strength of this league. And I gotta believe that one of these 9 teams is going to win it all too. That's the thing about the SEC right now is they're just so strong. I like Florida's chances today. I tell you, the game that's really interesting to me is LSU Oregon State, because Oregon State traditionally has tremendous baseball. And I know the game's in Baton Rouge, but I think that's going to be a wonderful game to watch. And heck, yesterday, didn't TCU beat Arkansas 20-5? But here's the thing. Arkansas probably saved pitching for today. I didn't watch that game. So I'm guessing that they decided we're going to take the loss. We're going to Andre Agassi it, and we're going to win today.
Hagen Smith gave up 8 earned runs in 1 inning.
Wow. Did not know that, Franz.
Hagen Smith is first team All SEC. Most people said he was the second best pitcher in the league this year behind Paul Scaines.
Yeah.
And TCU brought its bats, and I don't know what, they had 2 touchdowns against the Rouge for Arkansas before we could even breathe.
Yeah. So there goes my theory. Maybe Arkansas doesn't have any pitching left. I don't know. They tried to, win it with their guy yesterday. It didn't work out. So, being an Iowa fan, we got eliminated by Indiana State yesterday, which was surprising. But Indiana State went undefeated in their regional, which they hosted. So obviously, the beauty of it, unlike college football, you got teams like Oral Roberts. There's as David Schultz was talking about before I came on. You got Southern Miss left. You got Coastal Carolina left. I mean, baseball is like that. If you got good pitching and you can catch the ball, you don't have to hit it that well.
Yeah, and you forgot about Vanderbilt. They're out. So you got Auburn and Vanderbilt are out. You still have 8.
Maybe they were eliminated, Rob. So that's not someone who's left.
Yeah.
Right.
So so potentially you could have 8 SEC schools make it to the supers. But man, Arkansas And Franz, I think Franz is right. They saved their pitching for today. There's a lot going on. When you're down 20-5, you're the last bat with 2 outs yesterday in Fayetteville. You're almost like you don't want to get out, but let's just get a break for an hour and a half and play again. And that was a tough one they had last night against Santa Clara. And I think that the national narrative of a lot of the jealous folks out there around the country is, the collapse of the SEC. That's what they want to see. They want to see Florida lose today, LSU. They want to see Arkansas lose. They want to see Kentucky lose so they can have something to write about. But I think there'll be at least 5 SEC schools make it to super regional play.
We already have 2. Alabama's
Yeah.
super already. Tennessee's in a super
Yeah.
already. I like Kentucky. I like Florida in there for sure. Those 4 I feel confident with. I feel confident with LSU, even though LSU, beyond Paul Skeens, they really don't have any pitching at all. They got to do it on offense. If they were playing anywhere but Alex Box, I would say they're a goner. But at Alex Box, they hit like crazy. And I think that they'll win. That's 5 right there that I believe will advance, which is still going to be pretty impressive. That
Yes.
You got 5 out of 8. But those 5 teams, I feel very, very confident that they're going to do quite well as we move forward. Arkansas, I'd love to see Arkansas win, but I think that beating that TCU team 2 times is going to be really, really tough because they had the 20-5 game. Then they had to come back and win a 6-4 game just to get to the point where they can win 2 games.
That's right.
Yeah.
Florida was very, very fortunate the way things rolled out because yesterday.
Friends, hold those thoughts. Let's take a quick break when we come back. We're going to take a quick one more with Franz Beard, Matt Dean.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Of all the regional play that both of y'all have seen, I'll start with you, Matt. What surprised you the most on the side of the team losing or a team winning? I'm curious. Do you start with Tennessee going into Clemson and getting that regional win?
Not only do I start there, it's 4-2 in the ninth, isn't it? 2 strikes, 2 runners on. They get a 3-run bomb to beat Clemson in that first game. Then Clemson loses to Charlotte. Then Tennessee takes care of Charlotte. So that was huge. If Tennessee doesn't do that, they probably are not in the position they are today. I mean, that was a huge clutch 3-run home run down to the last strike. And honestly, I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm not surprised at anything. The game that's real intriguing today to me is like the Texas A&M Stanford game, the final of the Stanford Regional. I think Stanford beat them late last night, I believe, Franz.
Yes.
But
13-5.
That's right. And I'm guessing the Aggies, knowing that they could have a game to play with, may have saved some pitching for today. But sometimes, that whole saving the pitching theory is great until you have to go play the next game and it doesn't work out. So I was probably most surprised with Tennessee's comeback win in the 9th inning.
I thought Tennessee. I thought Tennessee, as much as I disliked Tony Vitello, I thought Tennessee was going to win that regional. I really did. That did not surprise me. A good surprise for me was that Oral Roberts won, because I think they are a truly quality program. They're now 49-11. That's not too shabby.
Yeah.
I think, if there's a thing that really surprised me, it was that Coastal Carolina lost a game in their region. They're going to end up, I believe, winning that region, but that surprised me. It also surprised me I wasn't surprised that Oral Roberts won in Stillwater, but I was surprised that that Okie State went out in 2.
Yeah.
2 through was just not in the cards for them. I don't know, but if it is a day game in Palo Alto, I like the Aggies. If it's a night game, that field, I've been to Little League fields that are better lit than Stanford. I'm telling you, my goodness, they got the Women's Church League Softball League that has fields that are better lit than that. And yet they keep getting regionals, and I do not understand why. Horrible facilities. I mean, you would think that a school that's got as many gazillionaires who've been there as Stanford University, that they could afford to have a decent baseball yard, but they don't have one. I'm sorry that they get it's interesting. These people come in here from UConn, and they said, and Florida's got a beautiful brand new ballpark, but realistically speaking, this is maybe the 6th or 7th best ball yard in the SEC. We got stadiums like at Alex Box, like Mississippi State, like Arkansas, like Bluebell Yard in Aggie Land, etc., like that. We got so many good ballparks in this conference. Maybe we're the number 5. I'll say we're 5. But these people from UConn say, this is the greatest ballpark we've ever seen. I said, this is just what you get in the SEC. They're all good, with the exception of 1 or 2 ballparks. They're all good in this conference. That's why one of the reasons the teams are so good. Kids want to come play in great facilities where the fans turn out. You look at Mississippi State. Mississippi State could play a homeless shelter and 17,000 people would show up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about that. Auburn and Vanderbilt are out. I know Auburn here maybe this week is going to start a $32 million project on the baseball facility. They're landlocked. I mean, they're right on top, underneath the football stadium, across from the basketball arena, and there's buildings all around them. But they're going to continue to make improvements. You're right. It's the money. And I tell you, Matt, what I've seen, Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina, Dave was talking about them from the Sun Belt. Right there, Troy was there, and then they weren't in the Alabama game last night. They play some damn good baseball in the Sun Belt Conference.
I'm going to go back to what I've always said about the sport of baseball. If you can get some arms in baseball, you can beat anyone. Our baseball coach, Jeff Cleathes, has won over 500 games, and we've done it with small ball a lot. We're gonna move runners over. We're gonna steal bases. We're gonna first and third you. We're gonna get our ace on the mound when it matters the most. And Franz, you're absolutely right about Stanford. I was watching some highlights from ESPN the other night, and I had no idea who's playing. It was at the Stanford Regional, and it was a night game, and I was like, the lighting was so porous. I thought it was my television, or I thought it was ESPN, but it must be what you're talking about, that ballpark. And it's just there's no excuse. The money they have, endowment of all the people that have supported Stanford athletics, as good as they are, there's no excuse. But getting back to Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss, when you have someone on the mound that can stop people and you don't commit errors, that's the beauty of baseball. There's so many different ways to win in baseball. In football, if you have a porous offensive line or defensive line, sorry for my language, you're going to get your butt kicked. Okay? You're going to get your butt kicked. But in baseball, if you got your middle infielders You got a really good catcher. Like I remember Oregon State a few years ago had a guy named Adley Rushman. I watched him in the College World Series. And my White Sox were picking right behind the Orioles that year. And I'm like, let him drop to us. Adley Rushman right now for the Baltimore Orioles, they're like 12 games over 500. It's because of their catcher. He's a star. He's a stud. And you see these obscure players from everywhere in the country. I go back to Mike Timlin, who pitched for the Boston Red Sox. He went to college at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas, NAIA. I'm just telling you, you only have, 11.8 scholarships in baseball at Division I level? So a lot of your better players are still getting financial aid, not full scholarships. So there's a hunger to these teams. They're used to grinding it out, and I attribute a lot to that.
Yeah, and I think the nationally college baseball, it used to be such a West Coast deal with Southern Cal and Arizona State. And now, I mean, Oregon State, 3 national championships in the last 10 years, 11 years. That's a hell of a program. And they do play the different kind of baseball on the West Coast. Friends, of the schools in the SEC, I think we will have 5 make it into the 16 team field of the 8 there'll be 8 super regionals. Just, you got to win. You only have to win 2 games there. Yeah. But facilities and all like that can take you only so far. Look at Texas. This is their 63rd NCAA regional, or NCAA baseball regional to be invited to. Miami, this was like their 50th. Florida State, in the 42 years Mike Martin was there, went to the College World Series in Omaha, I think 21 times. They never won the whole thing, but they're consistently, and not only do you think they made the tournament this year in the first or second year of their new coach, but everybody's starting to really push. But I think Stanford reminds me a lot of Vanderbilt. They're very wealthy schools, private with large multi-billion-dollar endowments, but they are really, really cheap when it comes to putting money into facilities. And Matt, watching the Stanford game, when it gets dark, it looks like Audubon Park in Memphis, with the street lights. It's a little ambient light if you're lucky. You're going to get hit in the face.
On the outfielders with a little light on it.
I think you're right, though. But they look at their band. They have that the Stanford band. I mean, it's just a ragtag collection of a bunch of dweebs with funny-looking hats and trumpets and kazoos. I mean, they think that's funny. But they're smarter than everybody else, so they'll tell us. But you know what? Why they got a region? I don't think during the regular season they beat a ranked team all season long. Now A&M and them play tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, so that'll be 7 for us, and I guess that'll be 9 p.m. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, but out there that's going to be 6 o'clock. Yeah. So it'll be light enough, I think.
If the game were played at 3 o'clock out there, I'd really like the Aggies. Because it'd be all sunlight. This is going to be at twilight, and it's going to be tough for them there. But I like them. We got a situation here where we know at least one SEC team will advance because you've got Florida and South. If Florida wins, South Carolina is coming here, and so you'll get that. South Carolina got reheated at the right time. If they were going to be playing at home, I would like them a lot, but they're not. They're going to have to. If Florida wins today, South Carolina is going to have to come here. That'll be a really good series. I want to get back to one little thing that was pointed out. Florida's got one of the more unique situations because we have a large NIL donor who made it so that every single athlete, whether scholarship or walk-on in every single sport, gets 3 meals a day. Doesn't count against your scholarship money. Now, here's the thing that Kevin O'Sullivan has been smart to do. We just have a few kids that aren't Florida kids here. But he gets these kids that are from the state of Florida on what's called Bright Futures. And he got almost every kid we've got here is smart enough to get a Bright Futures scholarship. And Bright Futures means that you get your tuition and fees paid for 4 years. So he gets these kids. So now all he's got to do, he doesn't have to now worry about meals. Now all he has to do is worry about is an apartment for these kids. That's it. So he can stretch his scholarship money better than anybody in the Southeastern Conference. And all you got to do is look at how he's recruiting here. Florida's coming in next year with a recruiting class that's unbelievable. And by the way, since we're talking about recruiting, let me throw in one other thing. Florida's bringing in 2 pitchers for softball. Keegan Rothrock is 77-3 in her career with a 0.44 career ERA. She's the number 1 pitcher in the country. The number 2 pitcher in the country is Ava Browne out of Montgomery, Texas, Lake Creek. She's only 81-0 in her career. Plus, she's hit 40 home runs and driven in 210. And if you remember Jason Williams, who played basketball here and then played the NBA a bunch of years, his daughter's the number 1 shortstop in the country, and she's coming here. Her mom was an All-American javelin thrower and heptathlete here at Florida. So we know none of those genes got drowned in the pool. So, you know, recruiting is, you know, Paul made a great point here about recruiting. This is where the SEC is beating people, but this is also where the smaller schools can excel, because if you can go out there and recruit to your strengths, if you got a little bitty ball yard, get you some kids that can hit fly balls. If you if you got a big ball yard, get kids with speed. But one thing for certain, you got to have a catcher, you got to have a shortstop, a second baseman, and a center fielder. You got those 4 positions. That's some pretty good pitching. You're going to win a lot of ball games.
Interesting here. Want to make sure, if Texas A&M beats Stanford, and that's a night game, then are they going to host the region and host Texas?
No. Texas was a higher seeded team. Texas was the number 2 seed. So in that case, even though both teams are unseeded, it's not who the region doesn't get the host. It's based at that point on who's the higher seed. And the Aggies were a 3, Texas was a 2. So in that case, two teams that weren't number 1s, Texas will get the regional, and it'll be the Aggies and Texas in Longhorn City. So that will be fun.
So A&M will go to Austin. Okay. But yeah, that's right. They're the higher seed. That will be huge. But the future SEC opponent, Texas, I mean, that is bringing them, and Oklahoma, of course, last year, they're the ones that played Ole Miss in the College World Series in the national championship round. Beat
Florida in the regional last year. And Florida was up with 1 out, with 2 outs in the 7th. Florida's up. And then we had like about a 38-hour rain delay. It seemed it was only like 7 hours, but seemed like about 38. And when we came back, Sproat was pitching at that point in time, and I promise you, they couldn't have beaten Sproat. Couldn't have beaten Sproat. Would not have beaten Sproat. And when we came back, new relievers, everything like that, and Oklahoma won. Okay, not taking anything away from Oklahoma, but the rain delay did help them a lot.
Well, this is going to be big, though, and it's the Stanford Texas A&M game. The Aggies last year, of course, made it to the College World Series. Matt, you think about it. Oregon, they won the Vanderbilt region, and Oregon State is playing today to try to get to the super region. They've got to beat LSU and Baton Rouge, but damn, Oregon, they're good in everything.
Going back to your surprising question, I thought Vanderbilt was coming out of that pod, and credit to the Ducks. But that one really was surprising to me. And, it doesn't shock me. My son works on their football staff. They got an unbelievable commitment up there to athletics. They got the brand going. They got Phil Knight. They have a lot of tremendous coaching. It doesn't shock me. Now, I will tell you this, because of the time difference, I don't follow a lot of Oregon baseball. I'll be honest with you. I watch Oregon football because I have a reason to. But I get a chance to watch a lot of SEC stuff on SEC Network. And, over the years, some of my favorite players that are playing now, like Franz, I was going to tell you the other day, I was watching the Reds play. I was watching Jonathan India, and I realized how good this guy is. I know he was great in college, but, man, he's a star. I mean, I'm sitting here in the Chicago White Sox. I'm like, how can we get Jonathan India in free agency in a couple years? That's not going to happen, but that kid is outstanding. He's got a lot of swagger to him, too. I love him. And you just see so many of these guys in the SEC. The only one that we didn't hit on, the Chicago White Sox.
Hold that thought.
Right.
Because we're going to take a quick break and come back with Matt Dean. Wes Moore will be checking in with us in just a minute from ESPN 103.7 in Little Rock as well after this. All right, Matt, you were rolling before that break, before Wes joins us. Let's go.
No, I was just going to also comment, it's hit and miss, though, because I really thought when the White Sox drafted Carson Fulmer from Vanderbilt, about 7 or 8 years ago, whenever that was, I thought he was just a no doubter. And sometimes pitchers, what happens when you have some control issues, they try to fix you, they tweak you, they send you down, and sometimes you see guys go in the pen and get things fixed as well because they can expend all their energy in one inning and just develop more velo. Because in the higher levels, what they want is they want bat. They don't want bat to contact as much. They want swings and misses, right? And that's why they're looking at the guys that throw mid-90s plus. But I still love the art of pitching when you can hit the corners, you can change speeds. My favorite pitch is still the changeup, guys. I mean, I was a former baseball guy. You're sitting there, you're geared up for the fastball, and a good change up with movement, man, it stops good hitting.
Well, people were pointing out some of these games, how many first strikes that the guys are just looking at. And you learn this from the first time you play baseball as a small boy is, good eye. Coach will say, good eye, good eye, good eye. The other one is you don't want to go down without swinging, striking out with looking at the ball. And if it's a full count, what's your dream pitch? That pitcher, if it's 3 balls or if it's 2 balls and 2 strikes, I mean, you can throw whatever you want, I guess. But there's so much strategy. The mental part of baseball is what makes it so much fun to watch. And that I see Oregon State, it's a different kind of ball than what we see here in the SEC. Sun Belt, I mean, again, they play really good baseball. The Big Ten, Indiana's going for a shot to get into Super Region today. But the more, you don't see schools in the South going up north to play, but you see schools from the Big Ten and the Northeast coming down and playing the Southern schools. I think it makes total sense. Franz, looking at the region and the total baseball, Wake Forest, they just destroyed everybody in their region. Don't know how strong their region. They were the number 1 seed overall. They have an easier looking path on paper, at least. but no one even really challenged Wake Forest. Clemson had won 16, 17 games in a row, and they get knocked out in their own region. Is Wake Forest a team that you think can win the whole thing?
I'll tell you what, they're going to have a serious problem with Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama got to go on the road up there. That's a small ball yard. Now, they've got great pitching, but it is a small ball yard. Alabama has got some guys that can hit it out of the yard. The neat thing, the thing that works in Alabama's favor is they don't have a lot of hitters. They are a good hit to contact team, and because of that, they've got enough power. It's a small ball yard, and if you can hit to contact, that's the only way you're going to beat Wake Forest. Because if you can't hit to contact, they will. If you are a free swinging team, they've got an advantage on you. They are really, really good against free swinging teams because they've got pitchers that are going to pound the strike zone consistently and throw the ball where they want to. Last night, we saw this at Texas Tech last night here. The leadoff hitter against Cade Fisher, gets a 10-pitch ground out. First, the leadoff man. He fouled off 7 pitches in a row before he put one in play. And that's the kind of team that can beat Wake Forest up there. Alabama is one of those teams. They're not going to strike out a lot, but I guarantee you they will put the ball in play. So they'll have it. But up there, hard to beat them.
Yeah. Let's get to Wes Moore in Little Rock right now. Wes, Hogs play today. I know you've got a big day ahead of you, but Razorbacks play today at 3 p.m. against TCU. We've been talking regionals all day. Let's get your takeaway from the whole weekend up to this point in Fayetteville.
Well, I would say the thing that sticks out is TCU's good, man. They're hitting the ball right now really well. And you look at their last 7 games, I think it is, they've scored 10 or more runs in 6 of the last 7 games. And the disappointing thing for Arkansas, they had their guy, they had it lined up, Hagen Smith, their all SEC pitcher, and they hammered him. I haven't seen anything like that. And I think Hagen hadn't seen anything like that too, because any mistake he made, they pounded it. They made him pay for that mistake. And then they hit a couple of good pitches. And next thing you know, they were down, 6-0, 10-0, and they got out of hand quickly. And Arkansas kind of pitched off a little bit, knowing this game was out of hand, and they had to save their pitchers because they had to get 27 innings out of those guys if they want to advance. And they got 9 last night and won the first game. Now it's down to 2 more. Actually, you got to win this afternoon and worry about tonight, if you win. But it's an uphill battle. I'll say that. Van Horn said after the game he did not know who was going to start. He said, guys, a lot of times I know who's going to start, but I just don't tell y'all. He said this is a case where I truly don't know who's going to start because the pitching situation is going to be rough. They're going to have some young guys step up. And look, they're not asking them to go 7, 8 innings. They need 3 innings out of this guy, 3 innings out of that guy, 3 innings out of this guy, and find a way to piece it together. But once again, that's, people are worried about the pitching. That TCU offense is really good, and that's the biggest concern for me. So what you have to do if you're the Razorbacks, you got to go out and score a bunch of runs. There are different ways to win a game. And today is a day where they're going to have to go out and score a bunch of runs.
Wes, when you look at this whole weekend, look around the SEC. I mean, Vanderbilt gets beat at home. Auburn gets beat at home. Tennessee sneaks in to Clemson. I'm not surprised that they won that one. But look at how many schools: Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida, LSU. They've all got to play today. I may have left someone off, but A&M. Yeah. A&M's got to play at Stanford. So you got 5 SEC schools. It's taken all the way to Monday to resolve this. Are you surprised at that, or is it you know baseball really well. There's just good baseball all over the country, and it's not a surprise. We're just not familiar with these teams.
Not really a surprise, but I'm a surprise with some of the teams that lost, like Vanderbilt. I did not see that one coming. Auburn, I thought Auburn was playing really good, and they played well at home in regionals. History shows you that they're very good at home in regionals. And to go, 0-2 like that was a surprise to me. LSU got rained out. That's the only reason they're playing today. They could have finished it off because they're 2-0. But no, nothing really sticks out as far as teams fighting for it. That's baseball. But the ones that lost so quickly, that's the biggest surprise to me out of the SEC. I really thought A&M had a chance to go to the Stanford Regional and win that. I was kind of surprised with their pitching last night with A&M. It felt like they were saving some of their best pitchers for today. And in baseball, I don't think you can do that. You got to take that opportunity and go with it.
Yeah, Franz.
I think that like I said, it's a dust game. If the game were later, I'd say Stanford for sure. I still think Stanford has the advantage. This is a 3 p.m. game. I would take the Aggies all the time on it because they just really hit. They are a great daytime team. I mean, they really are. They're not as – some teams are like that. Florida is a really good daytime team, as we're going to see this afternoon against Texas Tech. Some teams do it. I read somewhere in Sports Illustrated, I believe it was a few years ago, that said there's like a 1.5 runs per game differential in night games and day games. Day games you score more runs because you see the ball better than you do under artificial light. So, I think the teams that are playing in some of our ballparks here, we've got, it's like at South Carolina, at Florida, like at Arkansas, like at A&M, at LSU. Our ballparks are up at AA standard as far as the lighting, so we're pretty good ball clubs. But you get out there in some of these places, and like at Stanford, like I said, they need to put miners' helmets on these guys, with a little light on them so they can see out in that outfield. It's terrible. Arkansas. I gotta ask. Do you think Arkansas's got enough arms to win 2 ball games? TCU is just playing really well.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. They have the arms. They're just young arms. I mean, Parker Coyle at time. That's a great example. He's been lights out. Gage Wood. He was their closer. And then all of a sudden he lost it. And they're going to need him today, but those are 2 freshmen I just named. The Hagen Smith's going to come back and pitch, but you're not going to be able to get a bunch of, 6 innings out of him. You may be able to get 3 innings out of him. Hunter Holland, he'll come back and pitch, but maybe 2 or 3 innings. They have enough arms to get it done and not have to recycle all these guys. It's just going to be some of these arms are young guys, talented guys. That's why they're at Arkansas and they're in the SEC. And at times this year, they've shown flashes. I mean, at times, Ben Bybee, I thought was going to be a weekend starter for Arkansas. But then he went through a little bit of a slump, and he hasn't been pitching as well. So they're going to have to catch lightning in a bottle. The problem is they're going to have to probably catch lightning in a bottle 3 or 4 times.
Matt, as a coach, how much pressure you think Dave Van Horn is feeling? Got to do it. You win. You got to do it twice today against the team that beat you the day before, 20-5.
Yeah, but he's so good.
That's part of the job, isn't it?
He's so good at what he does. And here's the thing: all you talk about is game 1, because the pressure shifts if you win game 1. Then it becomes an elimination game. So it's no different than when you're playing in the NBA playoffs. If you can get that. Like the Celtics, even though they lost in game 7, when they were down 3-0, I promise you, all they're talking about is winning 1 game. And today, Arkansas is only worried about winning that game. And once they win that game, the momentum shifts to them. And, just looking at some of the team stats, they both have good offenses. Their ERAs are very similar. as Wes said, there's still some really good young arms, but they're young arms. And this is a pressure situation. How will they respond? I always think when you're the home team, everybody talks about the last at bat. I get that. But it's the very first 3 outs. If you can get a young pitcher to go in there and get out of the first inning unscathed, you have a great chance to get momentum by scoring in the bottom of the first. You look at the major league level, same thing happens. A lot of times, sinker ball pitchers, when you get them the first 2 innings because as they get tired, their stuff gets better. So, I think it's all about game 1. I'm not worried about game 2 until I win game 1.
That's Van Horn right there. He's not worried about tonight. And look, he's done that all year. Friday night, all he's trying to do is win Friday night. And that's when you saw Hagen Smith. He took him from a starter to put him in the bullpen. He was coming in, closing out game 1 because that's all they were worried about was game 1. Now, if they got a big lead and didn't need Hagen Smith, they didn't use him, and then they'd use him in game 2 because that's all he was worried about was winning game 2. So it's the same philosophy, and you're exactly right. That's what Van Horn's preaching today. Let's just go win this game this afternoon. He said that's how he wrapped up his press conference was, look, it's going to be tough. Something special is going to, or something magical will have to happen. I've seen it happen in my career, but I'm just glad that we're playing today.
Yeah, I mean, you're still in it. And the regional play, were you surprised Oklahoma State gets taken out by Oral Roberts? I mean, Oral Roberts and Dallas Baptist, Oral Roberts is a household name. They have been around in basketball and baseball forever, but there's good baseball played all over the country. TCU played Texas for the Big 12 championship, and they come on the road, and they have a guy, Trey Alexander yesterday? He hit 2 home runs all year. He hits 2 grand slams, then another 2-run homer, and then knocked in another RBI for 11 runs scored. It's just that's the kind of stuff that happens in the regionals, isn't it, Wes?
Well, and I said that last week. The last projection I saw was Oral Roberts and Dallas Baptist in the Fayetteville Regional. And when I saw them go to Stillwater, I was happy. I was like, I'm so glad those teams aren't in the Fayetteville Regional because Oral Roberts is very good. And, well, we saw that this weekend. And I knew Dallas Baptist was good because I've kept up with them all season long. So I was happy when those teams weren't in the Fayetteville Regional. The mistake was I didn't realize how hot TCU and how good – and we knew because Arkansas played TCU early in the season. But I was happy those 2 teams weren't in the Fayetteville Regional. Just turns out they got another really good team in the Fayetteville Regional in TCU.
Well, when I looked at the region, Arizona is a name, but it's not one of their better teams. But then Santa Clara and TCU, I was like, Arkansas, for being the number 3 overall seed, drew a really tough group of teams in their region. And that's proven to be true. And now, again, they got to do it today. Just win the first one, you're still alive. You're right. Don't let the moment be bigger than it is. And that's exactly where it's going.
Hey,
I looked at
one of the
I was just going to say, I saw TCU they're ranked number 17 in D1 baseball. How is the number 17 team in the country sent to the number 3 seed? I know they try to keep it regional, but man, you're right. That's a tough draw for Arkansas.
By the way, one of the greatest posters ever at any athletic event was when Kansas played Oral Roberts for the regional championship 1974 basketball, chance to go to Greensboro for the NCAA Final Four. Unfurled a big old sign by the Kansas students, beat ORU, for God's sake.
Yeah. Well, we all remember Oral Roberts getting on TV all the time. But, I mean, Wes, you grew up in Texas. Baseball is so big out there. This is the 63rd regional appearance by the Longhorns. And if A&M wins tonight at Stanford, looks like Texas will be hosting Texas A&M. Again, last year Oklahoma played Ole Miss for everything in the College World Series. We're just making this league tougher and tougher. But Texas, that's impressive for them to go on the road and win the Miami Regional.
Yeah, guys, you think about it. The SEC tied their own record with 10 teams getting into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
That was the fourth time this has happened. Well, also Texas and Oklahoma made regionals, and they'll be joining this conference here soon. So it is going to be a mega conference for baseball, just like all the other sports. But
Yeah.
I found it interesting for the first time. I can't remember the stat, how many years it's been. There wasn't a regional in the state of Texas.
Yeah. Well, you look at this, and you talked about TCU. We got Texas Tech here, and they came in hot as a pistol. And Texas Tech is coached, Wes, a guy very, very similar to Dave Van Horn. Tim Tadlock is as good a coach as there is. And you look at that. Holy cow. You come in here and you're playing a team that they got the best center fielder I've seen all year, and he's a freshman. Holy cow. So
yeah. There's really no look, we've run out of time, unfortunately. Great show, everybody. Wes, let people know how they can follow you on your show, and look forward to talking with you next week, hopefully about the still alive Razorbacks.
Yeah, you can go over to 1037thebuzz.com and listen to the show. We'll be on in about 15 minutes. You can download the Buzz app in your app store, or you can follow me on Twitter. It's Wes with 2 S's _more.
All right, Wes, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Franz Beard, Matt Dean, great show as always. GatorbaitMedia.com. Check Franz out. And on the Buddy Martin show, you can catch him there Monday through Thursday nights, along with Ben Troop as well. Matt Dean, great insight as always. And we'll be glued to the TVs today. I mean, it can't get better. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the greatest guests and listeners. Thanks so much for being a part of it. We're out of here. We will see you tomorrow. Be careful.